Elon Musk is turning into a loose cannon for Trump, and the president doesn't seem to know what to do about it. I'm talking about the same tech billionaire who once said, "I love Donald Trump as much as a straight man can love another man." But now, it looks like Musk thinks he's the one calling the shots, and he's not afraid to throw his weight around, even if it means going toe-to-toe with Marc Rubio. The recent federal job slashing under Musk's leadership is causing chaos, and Trump is feeling the heat. The president is stuck between a rock and a hard place, trying to balance Musk's aggressive cost-cutting agenda with the growing backlash from within his own administration. And let me tell you, the tension is reaching a breaking point. So, what exactly happened in that explosive meeting? Why is Musk clashing with Rubio, and how is Trump handling the fallout? Stick around, because this story is just getting started. Trump is fed up with the Musk-Rubio rift. The White House just turned into a battleground, and Elon Musk and Marco Rubio were the two gladiators in the ring. This wasn't your typical policy debate. It was a full-on, no-holds-barred showdown, and President Trump was right there in the middle of it, watching it all down. So, here's what happened. Elon Musk, the guy who's been on a mission to tear apart government spending like it's an outdated rocket design, went head-to-head with Secretary of State Marco Rubio. The tension had been simmering for weeks, but it finally exploded in the cabinet room. Musk didn't hold back. He straight up called out Rubio, accusing him of failing to downsize the State Department. "You've fired nobody," Musk said, pointing out how bloated the department still was. As Rubio laid out his plans for reorganizing the State Department, things took a sharp turn. Elon Musk, never one to mince words, decided to go on the offensive. According to the New York Times, Musk interrupted Rubio with a biting remark, "You're good on TV." But wait, it gets better. Musk sarcastically added that the only person Rubio might have fired was an employee from Musk's Doge. Rubio, though, wasn't about to take that lying down. He fired back, reminding Musk that 1,500 State Department officials had already taken buyouts. Then, matching Musk's sarcasm, Rubio hit him with this: "Do you want to rehire them just so you can fire them again and take credit?" Ouch! The room was tense, and you could cut the air with a knife. Trump, who had been sitting there with his arms folded, finally stepped in. "Marco's doing a great job," he said, throwing his support behind Rubio. Trump also emphasized that everyone needs to work together. Experts think Trump supporting Marco Rubio was quite shocking. While Trump has been a big fan of Musk's efficiency crusade, this moment showed that even the president has his limits, or that's what everyone thinks. By the way, this isn't just about one heated meeting. The bad blood between Musk and Rubio goes way deeper. Rubio has been privately fuming ever since Musk dismantled the U.S. Agency for International Development, USAID, an agency that's supposed to be under Rubio's control. Under Musk's orders, notices were sent out in mass mailings about terminating over 90% of USAID's contracts for humanitarian and development work around the world. So much so that the administration notified most USAID staffers that they were on leave or being fired, then gave thousands of those who worked in the Washington headquarters 15-minute time slots to clear out their desks under the escort of federal officers. Musk basically wiped it off the map as part of his aggressive cost-cutting measures, and Rubio hasn't forgotten this rapid dismantling of the congressionally authorized agency without his say in the decision-making. The fallout from the meeting was instant and far-reaching. Cabinet officials, many of whom had been quietly grumbling about Musk's relentless and often abrasive approach, saw the clash as a defining moment. For weeks, Musk's aggressive tactics, slashing budgets, dismantling agencies, and pushing for mass layoffs had left many in the administration uneasy. But this confrontation between Musk and Rubio was the breaking point. It wasn't just about policy anymore, it was about the human cost of Musk's efficiency drive, particularly when it came to layoffs affecting key groups like veterans. According to insiders, Trump was visibly shaken by the whole ordeal. The president, who had initially championed Musk's efforts to streamline government operations, seemed to be re-evaluating his stance. The heated exchange between Musk and Rubio, coupled with the broader concerns raised by other officials, appeared to strike a nerve. And hours after the meeting, reports of the Musk-Rubio showdown began to leak, and the media was quick to ask Trump about what had happened. When asked about the tensions during a press briefing, Trump's response was filled with complete frustration. Trump, accompanied by FIFA President Gianni Infantino during the briefing, rubbished the reports in his trademark style. Despite numerous sources revealing details about the heated clash between Musk and Rubio in the cabinet room, Trump simply dismissed everything with a response we've grown accustomed to, downplaying the severity of the situation as if it were no big deal. However, the drama didn't stop there. As reporters continued to press Trump about the fallout from the meeting, one journalist shifted gears and asked if Elon Musk would be playing an advisory role in the administration moving forward. Trump, initially deflecting, responded by saying he was there to talk about FIFA alone, a clear attempt to steer the conversation away from the brewing controversy. But the reporter didn't back down, and Trump eventually gave a response in which his tone was far from enthusiastic. Instead of the usual praise or confident endorsement he might have offered in the past, one can see that Trump's comment was lukewarm at best. It was a stark contrast to the way he'd previously championed Musk's role in his administration. The shift was subtle, but telling. Those watching closely could sense that Trump's confidence in Musk had been rattled by the recent clash with Rubio and the growing unease among cabinet officials. That said, the timing of this clash couldn't be worse for the Trump administration. Concerns about Musk's role in the government have been mounting for weeks, with critics questioning whether his aggressive cost-cutting measures and disruptive approach are doing more harm than good. The clash with Rubio was just the beginning. The real fight? It's about Doge, the government-slashing machine Musk is driving at full speed. And if you think one cabinet showdown was bad, wait until you see how Musk is tearing through Washington's institutions like a wrecking ball. What is Doge and Musk's agenda? When Donald Trump began his second term in office, he wasted no time bringing one of his most influential allies into the fold, tech billionaire Elon Musk. A top campaign donor and political advisor, Musk was quickly integrated into the administration in a move that raised eyebrows for all the right reasons. And on February 11, 2025, Trump signed an executive order in the Oval Office officially designating Musk as a Special Government Employee, or SGE for short. This title is typically reserved for individuals brought into the government temporarily to provide specialized expertise, but for Musk, it meant something much bigger. He was handed the reins of the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, a newly created White House team tasked with one mission: slashing federal spending. Now here's the catch. Despite its official-sounding name, DOGE isn't an actual government department. It wasn't established by an act of Congress, which would have required bipartisan approval and a lengthy legislative process. Instead, DOGE was created through one of Trump's executive orders, operating as an advisory body with a small but focused team. The order outlined DOGE's mission, which includes IT upgrades and other efficiency-boosting measures. But the real headline is Musk's aggressive agenda, drastically reducing the federal workforce and eliminating what he sees as wasteful spending. So much so that Musk did something outrageous like this. Elon Musk has bragged about feeding the US Agency for International Development into the wood chipper. Musk has said, "I think we do need to delete entire agencies as opposed to leave part of them behind." He then emphasized his point by saying, "If you don't remove the roots of the weed, then it's easy for the weed to grow back. But if you remove the roots of the weed, it doesn't stop weeds from ever going back, but it makes it harder." Moreover, Musk has been vocal about DOGE's goals, framing them as a necessary step to save taxpayer money and tackle the US national debt, which currently stands at a staggering $36 trillion. According to the US Treasury, the US federal government spent $6.75 trillion in the most recent fiscal year from October 2023 to September 2024. And this is what stings Musk the most. So what does Musk have in mind to counter this problem? Well, he proposed that DOGE will cut $2 trillion from federal spending, but this is where things get tricky. Critics argue that there are some things that Musk cannot control. For instance, $1.46 trillion goes to Social Security, $912 billion goes to health programs, and $880 billion to interest payments on the national debt, expenses that can't simply be cut without catastrophic consequences, like defaulting on government obligations. By the way, Musk hasn't clarified whether the $2 trillion in savings would come in a single year or over a longer period, but even experts who support reducing government spending are skeptical. They argue that cuts on this scale would either cripple essential government functions or spark massive public backlash. Well, despite the skepticism, Musk and DOGE have been busy. The team has been sharing updates on its X account, touting its achievements in cutting costs. For example, Musk claimed that DOGE saved taxpayers over $1 billion by canceling what he called crazy DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion contracts. Another major move was the elimination of USAID, the US Agency for International Development, which funds humanitarian and development projects in dozens of countries. So, what Musk's stance is? Well, he believes in streamlining foreign aid and redirecting resources to domestic priorities. Now, the most important question is, what powers does Elon Musk actually have as a special government employee? When Musk first took on this role, he claimed he would serve as an outside volunteer, working without formal compensation. However, the White House later clarified that he was operating as an unpaid special government employee. While this might sound like a minor distinction, it's actually significant. Special government employees, despite their temporary status, are largely treated the same as regular federal employees and can be granted similar powers, including access to sensitive and classified information. In Musk's case, this has meant unprecedented access to critical government systems, including a massive Treasury Department payment system that contains highly sensitive data like Americans' social security numbers and bank account information. I hope you paid close attention to this point of Musk having access to Americans' social security numbers and bank account information. Moreover, what sets Musk apart from other SGEs is the sheer scope of the authority he appears to be wielding. Unlike typical advisors or consultants, Musk has been making decisions that go far beyond the usual remit of a special government employee. For example, he has claimed the power to shut down entire government agencies, a move that has raised eyebrows across the political spectrum. Kathleen Clark, an expert in government ethics law, has been vocal about the constitutional issues at play here. She points out that the president does not have that power, and neither does Elon Musk under our Constitution, which grants Congress the power to control how money is spent by the executive branch. In other words, Musk's actions may be overstepping the boundaries of his role and encroaching on powers reserved for Congress. This overreach hasn't gone unnoticed. A group of 19 Democratic state attorneys general has filed a lawsuit challenging Doge's authority to shut down agencies and access sensitive information. They argue that Musk's actions are not only unconstitutional, but also pose a significant risk to the integrity of government operations. The lawsuit is just one example of the growing pushback against Musk and Doge. Political opponents, government watchdogs, and even some within the administration have accused Doge of operating without transparency and spreading misinformation about government spending. Critics argue that Musk, as an unelected official, is wielding far too much influence over decisions that affect millions of Americans. Adding to the controversy is the question of Musk's potential conflicts of interest. His businesses, including SpaceX and Tesla, hold billions of dollars in contracts with the US government. Critics worry that his dual role as a government advisor and a private sector CEO creates a clear conflict, with the potential for decisions that could benefit his companies at the expense of taxpayers. Both Trump and Musk have denied that any conflicts exist, but the concerns persist. Oh, by the way, the legal challenges against Doge and the Trump administration are mounting. Unions, state attorneys general, and advocacy groups have filed multiple lawsuits accusing the administration of tampering with funding that was approved by Congress, funding that is technically outside the president's authority to alter. The White House has repeatedly denied any wrongdoing, insisting that Doge's work is legal and necessary. However, the courts have stepped in on several occasions to halt Doge's cost-cutting moves, signaling that the legal system is pushing back against what many see as overreach. In one particularly notable case, a judge blocked Doge from accessing personal data held within US Treasury records, citing serious concerns over privacy and the potential misuse of sensitive information. This ruling was a significant blow to Musk's agenda, as it directly challenged Doge's authority and raised questions about the legality of its methods. But the legal challenges don't stop there. The layoffs themselves have sparked a wave of lawsuits and court interventions. For example, about 1,200 to 2,000 workers at the Department of Energy were initially laid off, including 325 from the National Nuclear Security Administration, NNSA, the agency responsible for overseeing the nation's nuclear stockpile. However, after widespread outcry and concerns about national security, the administration was forced to partly rescind these layoffs to retain essential nuclear security workers. This partial reversal highlights the chaotic and often contradictory nature of Doge's approach, as well as the real-world consequences of its sweeping cuts. The courts have also intervened in other areas. In a separate case, the administration has temporarily agreed not to fire any more staff at the U.S. Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, CFPB, following a court order. The CFPB, which plays a critical role in protecting consumers from financial fraud and abuse, had been a prime target for cuts, but the court's intervention has put those plans on hold, at least for now. Adding to the legal pressure, unions representing federal workers have filed lawsuits to block the buyout plan. These unions argue that the buyouts, which were presented as a voluntary option, are being used to pressure workers into leaving their jobs under unfair conditions. They also claim that the administration's actions violate labor laws and undermine the rights of federal employees. With all that's been said and done so far, the impact of Musk's Doge initiative has been nothing short of seismic, a tidal wave of change crashing through the federal workforce, leaving thousands of lives upended in its wake. The most visible and controversial outcome has been the massive slashing of jobs, with more than 9,500 workers fired so far. These aren't just numbers on a spreadsheet. These are real people, dedicated public servants who handled everything from managing America's vast federal lands to caring for the nation's military veterans. The layoffs have swept through multiple departments, including Interior, Energy, Veterans Affairs, Agriculture, and Health and Human Services, leaving behind a trail of uncertainty and frustration. The cuts have largely targeted probationary employees, those in their first year on the job who have fewer employment protections and are easier to let go. But the firings are only part of the story. They come on top of the roughly 75,000 workers who have accepted buyouts offered by the Trump administration as part of Musk's aggressive cost-cutting agenda. Combined, these reductions represent about 3% of the federal government's 2.3 million-person civilian workforce. To put it in perspective, that's like wiping out the entire population of a mid-sized city. The scale of these cuts is staggering, and the ripple effects are being felt far and wide. Most worryingly, some of the most alarming cuts have been in agencies that are critical to public health and safety. Nearly half of the probationary workers at the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, and the National Institutes of Health, NIH, are being forced out. These are institutions that play a vital role in protecting Americans' health, from responding to disease outbreaks to conducting groundbreaking medical research. Similarly, the U.S. Forest Service is firing around 3,400 recent hires, while the National Park Service is terminating about 1,000 employees. Even the Internal Revenue Service, IRS, the agency responsible for collecting taxes and ensuring the government has the funds to operate, is preparing to let go of thousands of workers in the coming weeks. These cuts aren't just about trimming fat, they're cutting into the muscle and bone of the federal government, leaving agencies strained and services disrupted. So what's Trump's explanation for such drastic measures? The president has consistently argued that the federal government is too bloated and that too much taxpayer money is lost to waste and fraud. In his view, these cuts are necessary to streamline operations, reduce inefficiencies, and ultimately save money. It's a message that resonates with some, especially those who believe the government should run more like a business. But while the rhetoric of cutting waste may sound appealing, the reality on the ground tells a different story, one of chaos, heartbreak, and broken trust. For the thousands of federal workers who have been fired, the experience has been nothing short of devastating. Many have expressed shock, anger, and a deep sense of betrayal. Take Nick Gioia, for example, a veteran who served in the Army and worked for the Department of Defense for 17 years. Gioia joined the USDA's Economic Research Service in December, only to be fired just a few weeks ago. His words cut to the heart of the human cost of these layoffs. "I've done a lot for my country, and as a veteran who served his country, I feel like I've been betrayed by my country." Gioia, who has a child with epilepsy, added, "To sit here and watch people like Mr. Musk tweet out how he feels like he's doing a great job, he doesn't realize what he's doing to people's lives." Gioia's story is just one of many. Across the country, federal workers, many of whom have dedicated decades to public service, are grappling with the sudden loss of their jobs and the uncertainty of what comes next. For some, like Gioia, the layoffs aren't just a professional setback, they're a personal crisis, threatening their ability to provide for their families and maintain their livelihoods. Adding to the controversy is the broader implication of these cuts. Steve Lenkart, executive director of the National Federation of Federal Employees Union, which represents over 100,000 workers, has been vocal about what he sees as the true motive behind Musk's agenda. He believes that Musk and the Trump administration are targeting agencies that regulate industry and finance, effectively prioritizing corporate interests over public service. That's really what this whole thing is all about. It's getting the government out of the way of industry and incredibly rich people, which is why Elon Musk is so excited about this. That said, Donald Trump has no issues with how Musk has been operating, so much so that he has been praising Musk's work whenever possible. Take an example of what he said last month. Well, by now, it's impossible to ignore the fact that Elon Musk has become Donald Trump's golden boy, a surprising twist in a relationship that was anything but friendly in the past. Think about it. Musk once said Trump was too old to run for president again and should hang up his hat. Fast forward to today, and Musk has gone from critic to confidant, wielding more influence in Trump's administration than almost anyone else. It's a dramatic shift, and one that says a lot about how power dynamics can change in the blink of an eye. Now, Musk isn't just a casual advisor, he's the driving force behind some of the most controversial and far-reaching policies of Trump's second term, and from Trump's perspective, Musk shouldn't be stopped from what he's doing. Trump's Musk dilemma. If you have any doubts about how much Trump wants to stay in Elon Musk's good graces, just look at the recent clash between Musk and Marco Rubio. During the heated exchange, Trump did praise Rubio's work, but he also made one thing crystal clear. Musk's role in the administration is non-negotiable. Speaking in the Oval Office after the meeting, Trump laid it out plainly. Cabinet members should decide who to cut, but if they didn't, Musk would step in and do the job himself. It was a stark reminder of just how much authority Musk wields and how far Trump is willing to go to keep him happy. The hastily planned gathering also hinted at a potential shift in the administration's approach. While Musk's Doge initiative has been driving the agenda in the early weeks of Trump's second term, the meeting suggested that the president might be starting to rein in some of Musk's sweeping powers. But even as Trump signaled a more measured approach, he made sure to emphasize that Musk's role was still central. In fact, Trump explicitly instructed his secretaries to work with Doge on cost-cutting measures, underscoring Musk's continued influence. By the way, observers have been quick to notice that Donald Trump seems to tread carefully around Elon Musk, almost as if he's afraid of falling out of favor with the billionaire tech mogul. This dynamic is particularly striking, given Trump's usual brash, no-holds-barred approach to relationships. But when it comes to Musk, Trump appears to be walking on eggshells, and for good reason. Musk's substantial financial contributions to Trump's political endeavors have made him an indispensable ally within the Republican sphere. During the 2024 presidential election, Musk donated a staggering $288 million to support Trump's campaign, primarily through America PAC and RBG PACs. That kind of financial backing isn't just helpful, it's game-changing, and Trump knows it. But it's not just about the money. Musk's influence extends far beyond his bank account. He's a larger-than-life figure with a massive following, a reputation for shaking up industries, and an uncanny ability to dominate headlines. For Trump, having Musk in his corner is a strategic advantage, both politically and culturally. However, this relationship isn't without its complexities. There are instances where Musk has acted unilaterally, leaving Trump seemingly out of the loop. For example, when Musk met with Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Trump told reporters he wasn't sure whether Musk attended as the CEO of his private companies or in his role with Doge. This ambiguity highlights the blurred lines between Musk's private interests and his government role, and it underscores the delicate balance Trump must maintain to keep Musk on his side. Also, the speculation among political observers is that Trump needs Musk as much as Musk needs Trump. Joe Walsh, former Republican representative and a vocal Trump critic, put it bluntly, they're the two most powerful people on the planet right now. They desperately need each other. For Trump, Musk represents a bridge to the tech world, a source of innovation, and a symbol of disruption, all qualities that align with Trump's brand. For Musk, Trump offers access to the highest levels of government and the opportunity to reshape policies in ways that benefit his businesses and personal vision. That said, it's important to keep in mind that Trump has been working overtime to protect Musk's role in the massive job-slashing initiative. The radical downsizing of the federal workforce has sparked widespread criticism, and much of that backlash has been directed squarely at Musk. But instead of letting Musk take the heat, Trump has been actively trying to distance him from the controversy. It's a delicate balancing act. Musk is undeniably the key figure behind the job cuts, yet he's been quick to raise his hands and tell Republicans, "Don't blame me for the mass firings." Musk's attempts to deflect responsibility haven't gone unnoticed. Despite being the driving force behind Doge's aggressive cost-cutting measures, he's insisted that he doesn't have the authority to hire or fire federal workers. Instead, he's framed his role as one of uncovering inefficiencies and presenting recommendations, leaving the actual decisions to others. But critics aren't buying it. They argue that Musk's influence is so pervasive that he's effectively calling the shots, even if he's not the one signing the termination papers. In the face of mounting backlash, Trump and his administration have stepped up to defend Musk. Richard Hudson of North Carolina, who leads the House Republicans' campaign arm, has been one of the most vocal supporters. "Elon doesn't fire people," Hudson said. "He doesn't have hiring and firing authority. The president has empowered him to go uncover this information, that's it." This narrative that Musk is merely a consultant uncovering waste, not a decision-maker, has become the administration's go-to defense. But the question remains, is this defense convincing? For many, it feels like a thinly veiled attempt to shield Musk from the political fallout of the job cuts. After all, it's no secret that Musk's Doge initiative has been the catalyst for the layoffs, and his fingerprints are all over the policies driving them. By positioning Musk as a neutral advisor, Trump is trying to insulate him from the anger of fired workers and their allies, while still benefiting from his cost-cutting expertise. For now, one thing is crystal clear. Trump cannot afford to lose Elon Musk's support. Musk isn't just another advisor or donor, he's the man Trump has entrusted with the enormous task of scouring the federal government, rooting out inefficiencies, and slashing waste. It's a mission that aligns perfectly with Trump's promise to drain the swamp, and Musk's reputation as a disruptor makes him uniquely suited for the job. But beyond the practicalities, experts agree that Trump recognizes Musk's importance on a deeper level. Musk brings more than just ideas. He brings credibility, innovation, and a level of influence that few others can match. This sentiment is echoed by Joe Walsh, who has been closely watching the Trump-Musk dynamic. "We're looking at 4 years of these two doing this," Walsh said. "They are like two monsters, and every day they're growing stronger." Thank you for watching this video. If you liked it, check out the suggested content on your screen by clicking one of the cards displayed.
Trump loves speaking to huge, packed crowds, and he never misses the chance to tell everyone about it. But recently, something unusual happened. The audience at his latest speech started thinning out.
This is a big crowd. This is a big, big, beautiful crowd.
Nobody can draw crowds like me. Nobody, not even close.
And Trump was left speaking to, well, barely anyone. His reaction to the emptying room was something to see, and let's just say it was unforgettable. Curious to catch that moment? Stick around and watch this video to the end. Empty seats and early exits. Crowd size has been a big deal throughout this election season. Everyone wants to have a large crowd supporting them, and no one wants to be seen as having no crowd at all. Former President Donald Trump, who has emerged as the Republican Party nominee for this upcoming election, is totally losing it because his rallies have been increasingly plagued by visible empty seats and reports of attendees leaving before he finishes speaking, a stark contrast to the packed venues he once commanded. From his rally events in Atlanta, Georgia, Long Island, New York, Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, among other rallies, and even at high-profile events like the Republican National Convention, the signs are clear. The enthusiasm at his rallies isn't what it used to be. Following the former president's rally at Georgia State University Convocation Center in Atlanta, an account on X, popularly known to campaign for Kamala Harris, Trump's opponent, posted this picture, supposedly showing rows and rows of empty seats, while also mentioning the fact that when Harris held her rally at the same venue just a few days earlier, every seat in the House was filled. However, Trump at the event, upon seeing the empty crowd, already went offensive, throwing shade at the Georgia State University, claiming they had blocked people from being able to enter the venue for the purpose of his rally. According to him, the school's administration kept around 500 or 600, maybe even 1,000 people from getting in, and that's why some of the seats were empty. Sounds like a pretty convenient excuse. Check this out. Still, on the crowd situation, he also added that he didn't stop there. He went further, hinting that if the school was capable of pulling off something like this during his rally, who knows what they might try to do come Election Day. He was clearly not happy. Now, Stephen Fowler, a political reporter who was actually there, gave his own take on the whole thing. He tweeted that the Harris campaign had used an outdated screenshot to make it seem like there were a bunch of empty seats. According to him, the only real gaps he saw were a few rows reserved for the press. But here's the odd thing. Fowler made mention of the fact that after Trump had been talking for about 90 minutes, some folks just got up and left. Now, people leaving Trump's rallies, that's something we're definitely going to talk about in a second. First, though, let's try to keep it fair. It's pretty normal for people to leave political rallies before they're over, no matter whose rally it is. Sometimes people just get tired, hungry, or they want to beat the traffic. So, on the surface, seeing a few people heading for the exits isn't all that strange, but what's interesting is that it's happening again and again at Trump's rallies. They all can't have the same excuse at every moment, really. And it's not just in Georgia. It's happened in Michigan, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Long Island, Las Vegas, basically everywhere. Even at the Republican National Convention, where Trump officially accepted the nomination, there were reports of people getting up and leaving halfway through his speech. Trump's critics, of course, are loving this. They're using it as ammunition, claiming that the Trump magic is fading and that people are losing interest in what he has to say. For example, Kamala Harris, the Democratic nominee battling Trump at the polls during the ABC presidential debate, took a jab at Trump, pointing out the fact that people are leaving Trump's rallies. Making it a little worse, she hinted that people are actually leaving because Trump's speeches are exhausting and boring. You can bet Trump wasn't happy about that. On the whole empty crowds at his rallies, Trump blames the media. He's accusing them of blowing the situation out of proportion. One step further, he's also accusing them of lying. Because according to Trump, the media loves to exaggerate any small dip in his crowd size to make him look bad. In fact, Trump is convinced on crowd size that he has the best crowd size in the history of not only the US, but in the history of the whole world. But the thing is, no matter how much Trump tries to deny this dwindling crowd size situation, or even blame the media for misreporting the actual situation of the crowds at his rallies, we've all seen the footage. It's not exactly a secret that at some of these rallies there are empty seats, and people are walking out before he's even finished speaking. At the end of the day, Trump has to sit down and think about what his obsession with crowd size is all about. Better still, maybe try to figure out why people are leaving his campaign and do something to fix it up urgently. Trump's obsession and fading appeal.
I have 10 times, 20 times, 30 times the crowd size. And no, they never say the crowd was big. That's why I'm always saying turn around the cameras.
Again, what's this whole obsession with crowd size? At this point, it's kind of become his main thing. At every press conference, at every rally event, even at debates. Come on, man, leave the crowd theme alone. Trump's absolutely fixated on those rally numbers, as if it's like his personal badge of honor or something. Many people are poking fun at Trump because of his obsession with rally numbers. Even Barack Obama even poked fun at it. But you know what's interesting? Trump isn't just talking about his own crowd sizes anymore. Nope, now he's aiming his spotlight at Kamala Harris's rallies. And of course, when he's not getting the crowd size he wants, what does he do? He lies about other people's crowds. Classic Trump move. I mean, we all remember when he accused Kamala Harris of faking her rally crowds with AI. He claimed that the VP's Detroit rally wasn't as packed as it seemed, and even threw out the wild suggestion that the photos were AI generated. Really, Donald? Let me set the stage here. So, Trump takes to Truth Social, his big boy social media that he built after he was initially banned on, then Twitter, and starts spreading the rumor that Kamala Harris's campaign faked photos of the crowd at her Detroit rally. He further suggested that the image of the crowd just didn't exist. The best part, he thinks the photo was AI generated. You can't make this stuff up. But wait, the thing is, actual people took photos and videos at that event. You know, like journalists, TV crews, professional photographers, and the usual crowd. And guess what? The pictures show exactly what Trump denies: a huge crowd. There's no AI wizardry involved here, just a lot of folks showing up to support Kamala. And if that's not enough, BBC Verify decided to dig into the metadata of one of the photos. They confirmed it was snapped on an iPhone 12 Pro Max on August 7th at exactly 6:28 p.m. No AI shenanigans there. The Harris campaign even backed it up, saying the photo wasn't edited or manipulated in any way. They even sent out more photos taken at the same time to prove it. A specialist professor, Hani Fareed from UC Berkeley, also analyzed the image and determined there was no evidence of AI tampering. Like none, zip nada. Back to something really happening at Trump's rallies these days is people leaving early, and not just a few people. A whole group of them are walking out before the event is even over. You'd think with all the hype, people would stick around until the end. But nope, that's not the case anymore. And when you think about possible reasons why this is happening, a few reasons do come to mind. First off, Trump's speeches are just too long, like really long. They feel never-ending. Some people come for the excitement, but what they get is a speech that goes on and on. It's like going to see a fun movie, but halfway through you realize it's actually a 3-hour documentary with no clear ending. Then we have the length of his speeches. They just go on forever. His nomination acceptance speech at the Republican National Convention, for example, lasted over an hour and a half, one of the longest in U.S. history. People were leaving halfway through. Even Trump's most devoted fans were checking their phones and glancing at the exits. The excitement in the room? Gone. And I don't blame them. Even I fell asleep while watching the rally. At the rally, I would have also left. The problem is, instead of sharing clear plans for the future, Trump spends a lot of time complaining. His speeches have turned into long rants about how unfairly he's been treated. He talks about the 2020 election, criticizes his opponents, and throws in some personal jabs. Sure, his most loyal fans might enjoy that, but for everyone else, it gets old pretty fast. Another issue is Trump's tendency to go off topic. He'll start talking about taxes, and then, out of nowhere, he's talking about bacon sales. Yes, bacon. And then sometimes he talks about electrocution, which doesn't even make sense in the middle of a political rally. It's like watching someone take a walk through a maze and getting lost. A particular time he was talking about Elon Musk, and then suddenly into operation and parental rights. You think you're following along, but suddenly you have no idea where the conversation is going. Trump, in his defense, likes to call this his weave, as if he's connecting all these different ideas together. But honestly, it just feels random. And after a while, it's easy to see why people are heading for the exits. They're tired of trying to keep up with the constant weaving. Now, Trump always blames the media when this happens. He says the fake news is making him look bad. But if you're sitting in the audience trying to make sense of it all, it's not the media's fault. People are leaving because they're tired and confused. At some point, they've had enough, and they decide to call it a day. And then, of course, there are Trump's lies and exaggerations, or as his supporters might call them, stretching the truth. Trump has been doing this for years, way before he even ran for president. Remember the birther conspiracy? He pushed the idea that President Obama wasn't born in the US, even after Obama showed his birth certificate. And when Trump finally backed off, he tried to blame it on Hillary Clinton. It was just ridiculous. Then there's his claim that the 2020 election was stolen. He was shouting about fraud even before the votes were counted. How does that even work? And here we are years later, and he's still claiming he won despite the much evidence showing that he did not. Then there was that crazy story about Haitian migrants in Ohio. Trump said they were stealing and eating people's pets. Of course, local authorities had to step in and clear things up because, surprise, no one's eating pets in Ohio. Thankfully, the moderator replied to him with this. Despite him being fact-checked during the debate, he still continued insisting that his false claims were right, but we all know it's just another example of Trump making up wild stories. Now imagine you're in the crowd listening to all these tall tales. After hearing enough of them, can you really blame anyone for getting up and walking out? It's not exactly surprising that people are losing interest and leaving early. And who can blame them? Between the rambling, the wild stories, and the marathon speeches, people are just tired. Maybe, if Trump kept his speeches short, focused, and most importantly devoid of lies, people would stay until the end. But as things stand now, folks are walking out early, and that's not a good sign for his campaign. In the end, it seems like Trump's long-winded speeches, his off-topic rants, and his constant exaggerations are wearing people out. His die-hard supporters might stick around, but for everyone else, it's getting harder to sit through the whole event, and that's something his campaign needs to think about. But how has all these affected his campaign so far? Fewer supporters, bigger problems? Talking about Trump's 2024 campaign so far, it's no surprise that it has been nothing short of chaotic. From the moment he announced he was throwing his hat in the ring again, it's been a wild ride. In true Trump fashion, announced that he would be vying for the post of president at his Mar-a-Lago residence, with his familiar crowd of red hats cheering him. But this time, it feels different. This isn't just about winning another term or being the voice of the many Americans he wishes to become president of their country. For Trump, this is about proving something. He's not just running for president again, he's running for revenge. After all, he said, for strategy this time, he's not trying to win over the middle ground. Trump is leaning all the way into his base, re-echoing the same views that speaks to his base, like the border wall to combat immigration, deportation of illegal immigrants, pro-life policies, amongst other right-wing policies. Significantly this time, he's also facing many legal issues and has even been indicted on criminal charges. In classic Trump manner, he's embracing his legal issues like they're badges of honor. He frames them as an attempt of the deep state and corrupt establishment to get at him, setting him up as the perfect guy to combat these hidden institutions in a bid to reclaim America's perfect democracy. And speaking of the establishment, Trump's not just targeting the Democrats, he's taking aim at everyone he believes is part of this so-called corrupt system, from the FBI to the Department of Justice. He even highlights how he intends to achieve this. He also added that, honestly, it feels like we're watching the sequel to Trump's first run. The same themes, the same messaging, just a little more intense this time. He's still playing the outsider, the guy who's going to drain the swamp, and for his supporters, that's a message that resonates now more than ever. They see the country in crisis, and in Trump, they think he's the only one who can fix it. This campaign season hasn't been without its surprises for Trump's team. First, they thought this campaign would be between Trump and current President Joe Biden, but then Biden stepped down. You know, in recent weeks, it's become clear to me I need to unite my party in this critical endeavor, so I've decided the best way forward is to pass the torch to a new generation. That's the best way to unite our nation. The 2024 presidential election at first seemed like a rematch of the 2020 election, Joe Biden versus Donald Trump, with both candidates having ready for a final showdown for the White House seat. But then, the Democratic Party decided to switch things up and replace Joe Biden after there had been calls for Biden to step down, especially after his disastrous performance in the first presidential debate against Trump. And let's be honest, Biden wasn't exactly looking like the strongest contender. Maybe it's the age thing. Maybe it's just that Sleepy Joe nickname sticking a little too well. We all knew he was no longer the right man for the job. Now the race was between Trump and Harris, making it a lot more interesting. When it was Biden, it almost seemed like a done deal for Trump. But now, with Harris in the mix, things aren't looking so certain anymore. In April 2024, the presidential race took a shocking and tragic turn when Donald Trump was the target of an assassination attempt at a rally in Butler County. The attack sent shockwaves through the country, and the attacker was immediately shot by the Secret Service men on ground, although not before the attacker claimed the life of another. It's safe to say that the assassination attempt gave Trump's campaign an unexpected jolt. Suddenly, it wasn't just about his legal battles or his constant claims about the 2020 election being stolen. Now, it was about survival, and that changed the tone of his campaign entirely. People who might have been on the fence about Trump were now looking at him with new eyes. Even those who had spent years criticizing him had to admit that his resilience was something to be admired. Whether they agreed with his politics or not, it was hard to deny that bouncing back from an attempt on your life is no small feat. Trump's image of raising his fist in the air before being led away to safety by Secret Service officials energized his supporters, and some in his base saw the attempted assassination as part of a larger scheme to silence not just Trump, but their entire movement. After all, Trump was taking on the deep state. But just as the dust was starting to settle from that first attempt, Trump faced another one, a second assassination attempt, but this time, the plot didn't get quite as far. The would-be assassin was caught before he could carry out the plan, while the second attempt didn't quite have the same media coverage as the first, probably because Trump wasn't physically harmed this time. Still, the narrative was clear. Trump was being targeted not just politically but physically, and that, for his supporters, was all the more reason to back him even harder. Now, here's where things get interesting. Despite all the noise, drama, and big rallies, a Trump victory isn't as guaranteed as it once seemed. When Joe Biden was still in the race, it looked like Trump had a smoother path to victory, especially with the first assassination attempt. Biden's approval was low, and Trump's base was fired up, making it seem like an easy win. But now, Kamala Harris stepping in has completely changed the dynamic. Harris, with her own base of supporters and a fresh narrative, has made this race a lot closer than anyone expected. Polls are showing Trump and Harris neck and neck, which was a surprise to many. What started as a potential landslide for Trump is now feeling like a nail-biter. This is where Trump's obsession with crowd size and keeping people engaged comes into play. We know Trump loves big crowds and he thrives on the energy they give him, but there's more to it than just ego. The size of his crowds and, more importantly, how many people stay excited about his campaign could be a deciding factor in this election. Maybe it's not just about the policies or the attacks on his opponents. It's about the energy he can sustain. If his crowds stay big and fired up, maybe, just maybe, that could translate to momentum when it counts most. If you found this video interesting, click on any of the cards on your screen to check out more interesting stories.